Welcome, everyone, to the return of the Unlimited Podcast, the
Woo, woo,
first
woo,
of the
woo.
Unlimited Video Game Podcast. I am your host, Walter Main, joined for, I believe, the first time on a podcast.
The absolute first time on a podcast, but not the first time on Unlimited.
No, you've done a couple very brief reviews for us. I think one from a train.
It's very possible. That sounds like me, though I could not tell you otherwise.
It is Stephen Baird. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing great. I am alive. I am feeling well in this COVID-19 world. I left my house today because I leave my house every day because it just lets me work from home instead of fucking, changing anything. So,
Yeah.
2020, baby.
But we are here today to talk about the event I was looking forward to, but I didn't know I would leave being so hyped.
Yeah, it was really unexpected, to say the least.
Yeah. Like, I thought I would be like, oh, hey, there's some games, and then like one at the end where it gets me like, okay, that's really interesting. But no, they kicked off and kept going with a bunch of stuff in this. We're covering the PS5 reveal video that they did earlier today, the stream Sony did. Like, this is exactly what their E3 conference would have been, with a bunch of unnecessary BS, and it made it so much better that it was like so streamlined.
Exactly. There was no fanfare behind it. There wasn't a crowd of people. They weren't waiting on delays. There were no technical difficulties. It was one of the smoothest gaming conferences that I've seen in years.
Yeah, there's not like, you remember, I think it was like 2 years ago on E3, the guy they were doing the clearly staged video game footage, but it looked like the guy was playing it and he was giving the over-the-top reactions to everything.
Oh, yeah. And then there were the years where, the demos just broke live on stage in front of the world to see. And everybody who was there excited to see that footage was like, oh, not spending money on that.
Skyward Sword.
Among others. I believe one of the latest Bethesda games had a very similar crash and burn when it came down to their announcement.
No.
But surprisingly, everything that Bethesda announced today looked spot on, and I saw their name tagged to a lot more projects than I expected to see.
Yeah, I noticed they were on one of my favorite projects going in, which we'll get to, but I didn't see the other ones.
There were a couple. There was a small handful of them. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 different titles that were scattered throughout, had the Bethesda tagline, but they weren't the main studio. They seemed to kind of be funding the project and being the parent company for these smaller studios. I can't think
Gotcha.
of the names of them off the top of my head, but I do know that there were maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Okay. And we're going to give thoughts on each of them. We're not going to like deep delve into a bunch of them because we'd be here for like freaking 3 hours at that point.
Yeah, it's not often that you get 26 game announcements in one day.
No. Usually at these press conferences, you get something like when they revealed the Xbox One, where you got like a handful of game reveals and like, oh, it's a cable box.
Exactly. And one thing that I noticed is that they didn't highlight on any features that were not gaming related in some capacity, all the way down to the hardware itself.
Yeah.
Down to the controller in your hand.
And that's what I like. My favorite piece of hardware was that headset.
It looked nice.
3D audio headset. I'm interested to see how that goes and how they integrate that in with other games, specifically the horror titles, such as Resident Evil.
Exactly.
8.
Exactly.
That's probably going to be terrifying in 3D audio. The last game was horrifying enough with just headphones.
Oh, exactly. And one thing that I made point to take notice of when it came down to that, as beautiful as that story looks like it's going to be, as Victorian as it seems, similar to Resident Evil 4 with the archetype.
Yeah.
It's a first-person title.
Yeah.
And if that means anything based on what they did last time around, this bad boy might have some VR tied to it too.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's kick off with, let's do it in order here. I believe this list is in order. Started with the big announcement that GTA Online is going to be free at launch, and PS4 players for GTA Online every month from now until the PS5 launches later this year will get $1 million in game a month.
Exactly, and I believe whenever this console does come out, I'm not entirely certain when it's slated because they didn't really give us a date, that people are going to be able to rack up a couple mil just by owning the game on PlayStation
Yeah.
4 and having that account. And I'm somebody who plays on both Xbox and PlayStation. I own it on both. This might make me main on PlayStation, so to speak, hopping on Xbox to play with certain people who only have it there.
Right.
My biggest thing, though, is the enhancements and expansions that they touched upon. They didn't deep dive into them, but the fact that they made a point to highlight that, it speaks a lot. And it speaks a lot for a studio to be able to have a title that, in and of itself, not a brand, but a title that was so successful that they were able to bring it through 3 generations of gaming without having to discontinue its servers. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Like, it's going to be such a big deal. Like, any bit of single player expansion, it's so looked forward to and so waited on that even if it's just like a few missions, it's going to bring so much hype.
Exactly. And they've been building on GTA Online as much as they have been, which is, great. But when I saw that Rockstar logo, I'm not going to lie, I jumped for joy inside, hoping that it was a new title, but I wasn't disappointed with what I got regardless.
No, they're definitely giving PlayStation owners a reason to they're giving GTA players a reason to side with PlayStation.
Exactly. They're giving incentives that Xbox just doesn't seem to be able to offer now. And
No.
I've been an Xbox guy forever.
Yeah. Next, they did one of the titles I'm most excited for going in and coming out. That's the spin-off question mark from 2018 Spider-Man with Miles Morales now.
See, it doesn't. I'm not sure if it's going to be a spinoff. I feel like this is going to be a segue sequel, not quite as bulky in length, but that brings us into the further generations of this section of the Marvelverse.
Yeah. And that's coming holiday 2020, which makes me think that's a launch title, which if they're smart, maybe there'd be a bundle.
Maybe. I've already been seeing some rumors floating around in these mocked up images of a beautiful black sleek design of the console with a red brim for the Miles Morales. But that would be very easy for them to do. But I can always tell when it's fan made because they're coming from unverified sources.
Oh, of course.
So a bundle would be amazing if you had the limited edition console with it too. Because I know a lot of folks are going to want a black iteration of the console no matter what.
Yes. I prefer black iterations of my consoles because it's harder. Like a white console, you would just see so much how dusty it gets.
See, and it's not even just that. Like I noticed this with the Xbox 360s I had owned. They would start to yellow over time. They would just oxidize and turn yellow with aging. But biggest thing that I noticed was that it seemed like they ramped up the graphics engine immensely for this new Spider-Man title. And you have to take that into account of the new console. But from what I saw, it seems like it's going to be a lot more of a darker tale. Or, well, not darker, but more of an urban tale than we saw out of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Which is something that I really want to explore in a video game. Because the closest thing you get to that is in Infamous, which aren't bad games, but they aren't deeply divin as far as lore with Spider-Man.
Right. Like Miles is going to give a new perspective, a younger perspective, a new sets of powers because not only does Miles have the webs and stuff, but a lot of his stuff is electricity based.
Exactly.
So
Peter had to implement technology for that. His is just natural.
Yeah. And then we moved on to what I believe just about every PlayStation console other than the first PlayStation has had at launch, and that's a Gran Turismo title.
Gran Turismo, man.
Because racing games such as Gran Turismo are pretty much the perfect way to be like, look at the capability of this console. Look at the graphics. Look at what we can do as far as environments go.
Look at the speed behind our engine. Look exactly how seamlessly we can run. And overall, those games are made for one particular type of person. And that's the type of person like my little brother who has a full setup in his bedroom with some pedals, a steering wheel, a monitor dedicated just for racing games, and wanting to sit back, relax, and drive in their bedroom.
Oh, yeah. And it looks stunning. The only concern I would have, A, I'm not much of a racing game guy, and B, I know the last game wasn't particularly greatly received due to the immense levels of microtransactions.
Exactly. But My hope is that that game was born during a time where microtransactions were rampant and expectant versus a time where they're now criticized across the board. So I'm hoping that
Yes.
we don't see the same. I'm not a big racing guy myself unless I can make the person I'm driving against just explode in the process. So while Gran
Which we'll
Turismo is
get
not
to
a game,
that. We'll
we
get
will.
to that.
We will. While Gran Turismo is not the type of game for me, it is a game that I can understand why people would enjoy
Yes.
because I know
I
people enjoy it
I
religiously.
completely understand the appeal. It's very much a racing simulator versus an arcade racing game.
And that draws the line for a lot of people.
Yeah. Next, we got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which looks nuts.
Nuts and bolts, no pun intended there, eh?
Eh.
But no, when it comes down to Ratchet and Clank games, they're always a franchise that I've looked at and I've respected, but it's not a franchise I've ever personally played. It was a game that I would go to over my friend's house. I would hang out. His parents would be making dinner. He would throw the game on, and I would just watch him play because it was a single player game at the time.
Right.
But seeing this title and seeing the way that they've evolved the platform from what it was rudimentarily when I was a child, this is a game that I'm going to be buying the second that it comes out. And I'm not a fan of the franchise of having ever played it. It just looks like an all-around solid title. It looks like it has everything down to the graphical elements. It has the attention to detail when it comes down to controls and the ability to shift and swap between your weapons and your arsenal. It looks like it's a game of games.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. It looks really good. The concept is awesome. The rift between worlds, they said pretty much seamlessly you'll be able to go from each planet. And so that's got me right there. And it's looking like a game that whenever it's released, because they didn't give a time frame, that's going to be a must play.
Exactly. And what they already have now, like from what I was seeing, it looked like they were just transitioning into gameplay
Yeah.
while that trailer was going on. It's hard to say for sure if it's this early in the game's process cycle, but if that's the way the game is running now, it's going to be a monster.
Oh, yeah. And then we've got Project Athea, which it
It looked
visually looked
insane.
good.
It didn't show us much, though.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Project Athea, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that showed us that open expanse with the girl just diving between the cliffs left and right.
I think so.
Yes. And it looks very interesting, but it looks like it's an idea versus a game. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the tech demo that we recently saw for the new Unreal Engine versus something that has plot to it. It gave us very vague details, but then again, there are games that are vague that have become wonders throughout the years, such as Shadow of the Colossus. You don't get much, but by the time it's done, you're awestruck by it.
Yeah. That's a game I have to finish because even though I know how it ends, I just want to experience it.
It's the experience more than anything else. It's not about, the plot. It's the experience behind it all. Because it's such a unique game. I need to get on
Yeah.
that bandwagon myself. I know how it ends, but
Yeah, so do I. And then we have one of the most curious concepts, Stray. You play as a stray cat.
You're just a cat wandering the streets of what seems to be a world that is void of all humanity. Based on some of the graffiti that I looked at when I had rewatched the trailer, you saw we miss humans, like rest in peace humans.
Yeah.
So it seems to imply that this is just a futuristic world, and the biggest vibe that it brought to me. If you have not seen on Netflix, there's this one particular series. Oh, why am I losing the name of it right now? It's this anthology series and it's animated. Give me one quick second. Let me do some research here.
Okay. And
Love, Death, Robots. That's what it is. Then you need to
okay.
type in the Google search. There's one particular episode that consists of 3 robots in a post-humanity world exploring a planet. And they come across these cats. And by the time they realize it, the cats have become extremely sentiently evolved. They developed like opposed thumbs and they were just speaking like they had taken over the planet entirely. So to see a game based on a cat in a robotic world after humans have passed, I'm already sold on the concept, and it's a rare genre to explore. Most recently, a game came out called Manhunter that explored a similar vibe where you were playing as a shark. And while that's a more aggressive title, a lot of people don't know that Sony once produced a title almost exactly like this years ago on the PlayStation 2. And in that game, you played a stray dog, roaming around a neighborhood, doing various things. As there weren't robots involved that was anywhere near as advanced looking as this game was. But that game is also something that you can sit down, play, and enjoy. And that's what I got from this vibe. This trailer looks like something of a game that you can sit down and just fucking enjoy it. You can
Yeah.
roam around as a cat for a little while doing cat shit.
Yeah, it looks like a game that's going to be just a chill time. You can sit back, you can just relax, enjoy yourself, do cat stuff, knock things off of
Things.
whatever, knock things off of things, get your, maybe try and find your milk.
Exactly. Go chase a mouse around, catch it, throw it up in the air, torture it for like 35 minutes, then finally kill it. You know, cat stuff. Cat stuff.
And then we had what doesn't look like a relaxing time, but what looks like a good time, Returnal.
Yeah, Returnal. Returnal is part of a genre of games that seem to be coming out with this new generation that's looking back, at least conceptually, at the games of yesteryears, where if you died, you're going back to the beginning. You're
Yeah.
restarting in some way, some shape, or form, but then it gets a little bit deeper than that. It seems to have amnesia elements
Yeah.
almost, in which as you progress, if you die more, the game warps more, you know?
Yeah, it looks like every time you die, the world changes.
In some way, and it flashed back to her elements of being on what looked like Earth and then this new planet.
Yeah. And this, like, if the vibes I'm getting end up being accurate, I'm all about this. Like, I'm all about, like, a psychological mess with your head horror title
Oh, absolutely.
mixed with shooter elements. Like, give that to me all day. This
Exactly.
game looks like a good time. This game
Give me a
looks,
gun and fuck with my head at the same time, and I'll get trigger happy quick.
oh
It'll be a
yeah.
good time.
Then we go to I would say the closest thing that Sony's had to a mascot since Crash, and that would be the Sackboy: A Big Adventure.
Oh yeah.
Getting away from Little Big Planet, I think it's his first appearance outside of Little Big Planet, other than the PlayStation Fighter game, which we don't talk about.
A lot of people were suspecting that it may have made a revival this year, by the way. That was one of the rumors floating about. But this game, it looks like it's taking all of the best elements of Little Big Planet and tying them in with a platformer.
Yeah.
Like a traditional platformer, not the platformer that it was known to be.
Yeah. It's like, it's not the world creator. It's more, here's Sackboy in his own little world.
And it looks like it's 4-player co-op too. So it retains that element of it with a completely different vibe. At least from what the clip showed, it either has a Mario Party-esque mode to it, where you can play 4 at a time, or it just outright has traditional 4-player co-op.
Which that would be cool. Especially if when you're playing 4-player co-op, there's like extra challenges that you would need all 4 of you cooperating for.
Exactly. Similar to the way the Portal worked.
Yeah. And then we've got something that just looks like a bunch of explosions and a good time, and that's Destruction All-Stars.
Destruction All-Stars. If I've ever seen a game that looked like Rocket League mixed with Twisted Metal, it's this.
Yeah. Like,
I can't tell what it exactly is, and that's what makes me excited for it.
Yeah. I just want to drive around a track and blow up my friends' cars.
Exactly. It seems like you can blow up your friends' cars and they have to get out of those cars potentially, or they have to run to a new car and you can chase them down on foot. But it seemed like there are also team-based elements to it as well, which is adding to the Rocket League vibes. It's going to be curious to see if you play as certain like captains of teams and those teams play differently and they have different play styles and you can just choose even like the same team going into a head-to-head, or what the dynamic there will be.
Yeah. So that looks like a good time. Kenna Bridge of the Spirits. I remember this one looking interesting, but wanting to see more.
Exactly. It seemed like at first it had, like, from the gameplay that it showed us, Pikmin vibes almost.
Yeah.
Almost. But at the same time, the way that the lore was broken down, it seemed like there's so many deeper elements to it. Like, it may be something that's more of a theatrical watch with slight gameplay elements tied into it. Like, say, for example, you need to go through some puzzle solving. You get a cutscene, more puzzle solving. But who's to say?
Yeah.
It looks fun though.
Yeah. And then one where I don't even know what it is, don't even know what type of game it is, don't know if it's going to be an interactive story. Goodbye Volcano High.
This was the one that I was mentioning before you and I began this stream here as one of the ones that I would probably be the most critical on. I'm going to let you say your piece first, whatever you have to say on this
I
game.
don't know how to feel about it because I don't know what it is. Like, if it's a Japanese gaming company trying to bring, like, with how huge dating simulators are in Japan, I could very easily see them trying to make that work in America.
Which
But
they've done that
yeah,
successfully, by the way.
but like I just don't know what this game is trying to be. Like, there was the singing part, so is it going to be like a rhythm game, or is it going to be like, are they going to subvert it and make it like some sort of epic JRPG based on these characters? Like, they didn't really have much of anything to show, so I can't really have a feeling on it if you don't give me like what I'm going to be experiencing with it.
Fair. That's fair. What I saw from that, though, it seemed like it was from start to finish an Americanized visual novel. And these are very popular over in Japan, and they're built almost like they're video games. But they are interactive stories, essentially, where there's
Yeah,
no variation, there's no diversion, it's just the story. You interact with it. And from the vibe that I'm getting from it, it literally seems like somebody decided to anthropomorphize every single solitary bad, cheesy, angsty teen movie, throw some horns on them, make them rhinos and all these other different wild animals, and get away with calling it a proper video game. See, I could
yeah,
be wrong entirely, but this seems like one of those things that you're just going to be clicking through, pressing X, 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 walking to the next person to talk to you, pressing X, X, and it's all of these cuts. Just based on the way that it was presented to us, it doesn't look like it's a built game. It looks like an animation.
yeah. And
And for that,
that's some people's thing. It's definitely
it
not
is.
my thing.
But you don't use a title like that to present your new hardware. Because
Right.
you could have played that shit on a PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
If you had the right DVD and plopped, not DVD, maybe PlayStation 2 for DVDs, plop that in, it would have produced to the same quality. So I don't know. It could have just been an idea. It could have been like, this is our idea. And then we see a beautiful video game world where it's all fully
Right.
coded. Who knows?
Like, because they didn't give it, like, they gave next year as a release date, but maybe they're holding back.
It felt like it was a commercial for a movie that was plugged into this conference.
Yeah. It, that one was a very, okay, what moment. The next one that looked really nice, Oddworld Soulstorm.
Oddworld. Oh, Oddworld. I recently saw that some Oddworld titles were on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm like, yep, right away. Boom. Munch's Odyssey, let me get on that. Because the Oddworld titles came out in the early Xbox days. And a lot of people aren't aware of the significance behind those titles, especially now during the times that we're going through.
Yeah.
It's quite literally a game piece that's built upon systemic oppression, racism, things like that, without outright saying that this is what this is about. This is about a slave who was working in a factory that found out that that factory was grinding up his fellow people to produce food and things like that they were then cannibalizing them
Jesus.
with. They strapped their mouth shut, sewed them shut so they couldn't speak. And this Abe, he's had many games. Abe is someone who broke out. He's the rebel. He's like Luke Skywalker almost, essentially, to his people. He's the beacon of hope. And in Munch's Odyssey, you saw a similar thing happen to a different race, and Abe is tied into that game as well. So to see Oddworld come back now during a time like this is amazing. And that gameplay looks on par with what we used to expect from an Oddworld game.
Yeah, it looks
You have
really intense. It looks
intense puzzle solving, fucking wildness. And one of the coolest games is Oddworld, Stranger's Revenge or Stranger's Wrath, one of the two. I forget the exact name. And it's a totally different take. It's like a first-person shooter in that same world. Highly recommend it. But the Oddworld franchise is one that's been unexplored for maybe 15 years?
Yeah,
No,
I
no, no, no,
know.
no. There was one that came out for the play. I'm lying now. There's one that recently came out for the PlayStation, but it wasn't like a great title. It was like a indie produced title almost in contrast.
I know they remastered Abe's Odyssey, I think last gen.
Munch's Odyssey.
No, they did Abe's Odyssey for I think the
Oh,
360
okay.
and PS3.
Sweet, sweet. I know they also did Munch's. It's a great franchise, like
Yeah,
lovable as can be, and it's fun. It has all of the elements of old school gaming wrapped into one title.
yeah. And I think the franchise goes all the way back to the PlayStation 1.
It might. It's right around that era. Like it's such an old game. I
Yeah,
believe it originated on PlayStation 1, then traversed even onto like early Xbox with some titles, and it was a multi-platform title for a while. But to see it
yeah,
return home, that's dope.
yeah. And then we got Ghostwire Tokyo, which visually is stunning.
Visually stunning, and it looks like. Do you recall the game that came out years ago, The Darkness?
Yes.
It reminds me of The Darkness, but it looks like they took everything they fucked up on and did it right.
Yeah.
They immensely made it better.
Yeah. That game looks like it's something to keep your eye on. It look like the rendering of Tokyo as a city looks just incredible.
Pristine.
The lighting, all that. And I am up for anything with that kind of vibe.
It looks fast paced, but I do have a criticism of it.
Yeah.
And it was laziness with one of the enemies that they showed the most. Out of all of the enemies that they highlighted, design wise, it was Slenderman with an umbrella. It was Slenderman, no tentacles, holding an umbrella. And I just saw that design and it stood out to me over and over again. I'm like, is that Slenderman? Is this a Slenderman game? What's going on here?
Right.
And as a game that I think I'm gonna buy it and I'm probably gonna love it, that's the one thing that I will criticize, that I will have to kill Slenderman over and over again.
And then we had one of the more interesting story concepts I saw, and that's Jet the Far Shore. Because it looks like it takes place in a reality where humans have left Earth.
Yep, storyline wise. But the one thing that I noticed when the gameplay was shown, that gameplay graphically, unless this is something that is so expansive that they could not possibly render them better, graphically, it looked like it was a mess. It looked like an early PC game in which you were in a rocket ship just going. And with the way that the trailer presented the year timeline, it looks like a game where you're just trying to sustain a colony over a long expanse of time as you're traveling these different planets. And if that's what it is, I'll pick up No Man's Sky. It was hard to tell what the game is. The story concept looked amazing. Like I was entranced with the early part of the trailer when they were showing all of the people getting on the ship. But then when they were on the ship and it looked like they were showing gameplay, I was like, what am I watching right now? Is this just a ship going?
Yeah.
But it's intriguing. I just need to know more about it.
Yeah. And the end of the trailer where you have like the little girl going to her mom and like, what's that? And then they pan over and it's like, it's Earth.
Exactly.
And they're reviewing it from the moon and it's like that.
Oh, no, you're mixing up games right now. Nope, you're actually mixing up trailers.
Am I?
You're thinking of a trailer that comes later on with this astronaut fella and the little girl.
Okay.
You're mixing them. This one was the one that looked like it was just a straight shot of a spaceship through like a lake and then like through like another planet. And then by the time I was done with that one, like story wise, yes, it looked so cool. It started like all these monks leaving Earth. But then it showed us that and I was just like, what did I just look at? But later on is that one. And that one looks fucking crazy. Because it looks like you get ripped off of Earth onto that moon almost, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. And then we had Godfall, which looks fucking cool.
It really does. Godfall, like they presented that game in the way that like a lot of these mobile games present themselves, were just like boom, cool, pow pow.
Yeah.
But it was just badass swordplay, spearmanship throughout, the cool looking armor. Like it's one of those games, kind of like Overlord back in the day, where it's like you are a badass. That's what this game is.
It reminds me of how you would feel playing the OG God of War games, and you're just slashing and mauling all these people with no effort.
It's funny that you say God of War. I was getting, in particular, Fable vibes from it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
But that just goes to show like the contrast, because I grew up with Fable, but I didn't grow up with God of War.
Yeah. And then we have Solar Ash, which is that the game I was thinking of?
No. Solar Ash is the like totally like vibrant, multicolored game in which the woman, she walks out, and as she walks out, the world turns upside down, and there's like this glowing orange core. She gets sent down, like it's neon almost. It's
Oh, that's the one. It's like the kind of like a cell shaded shooter.
not the shooter. No, it didn't show any shooting. This is the one that was like purple and neon, and it's a woman. She's like walking, and like she finds this like goddess looking woman. She's like, "So you found your way here." Well, that was a mistake, and
Mm-hmm.
dropped her down. And then
Mm-hmm.
it showed her skipping through the water with these beautiful color schemes and this billowing purplish cape that was like see-through almost behind her. And then it didn't show us much gameplay after that, because as she ran up, the whole camera angle distorted, and she was standing upside down on this beautiful pillar.
Yeah. Okay.
And that game, it reminds me of Mirror's Edge a little bit, but it didn't show us enough to really determine what
Right.
the hell it is.
Yeah. Whether it's like a Mirror's Edge or whether it's like a Journey,
Exactly.
where in Journey you're kind of just going through and just chill, relax time. Then we had Hitman 3.
Oh, Hitman. Hitman has been a series near and dear to my heart since I
Oh,
was a little one. And they didn't really tell us what the plot was.
all they
They
said
alluded
was,
to it.
like, they said it was, they alluded that it's going to be something like almost completely different.
Yep. And it's like personal, apparently. But
Yeah.
one thing that I noticed that the one narrator character had been saying was like, all of your hard work, all of your dedication, it only sped this process up. Something tells me the agency is about to try to turn on this man.
Ooh.
And they're about to feel the wrath of the best assassin that has ever lived, the best hitman that has ever lived. I don't care what.
Oh.
Ezio Torre, he was slick. He was not as slick as this motherfucking agent. I am sorry.
Oh, no. Ezio has not executed people in some of the most brutal and also comedic ways possible.
Well, he has, but he has not to that degree, not to the degree of this man. This man, Ezio Torre, never rode off on a rubber duck after assassinating a man.
he never dressed up as a pilot, ushered someone into their plane, and then pressed the eject seat button, sending them 100 feet up into the air.
He never killed enough people in a specific fashion to see a Sharknado. And that's as far as we're going to go down that topic, because we could just keep going.
And then we have another one that I have no idea what to think of, and that's Astro's Playroom.
That right there, I don't know what to think of it either, but I don't think it's going to be a title we're going to have to pay for. I think it's going to be an inherent title built into the console.
That really
it seems like Astro
be.
might be their new like mascot.
Yeah.
Just based on, like, I couldn't tell. It seemed like it was so rudimentary.
Yeah.
Like it was a mix of a couple different games.
Like, it looks almost like it's a game you could idly play, like, at your launch screen.
Exactly. But I could also see it being a title that will then come alongside a console that costs so much money that they have to include something with it.
Yes.
So, and it looks like it demonstrates all of these different features of the console too, like gliding, RPG elements, little things like that. But they didn't announce any like studio behind it or anything. They just kind of showed it and it continued.
Yeah. And then we had Little Devil Inside, which
looks great.
Love the art style on it. That was the one where the big thing was the giant dragon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like
paper,
really cool.
It's like paper cut almost.
Yeah.
But I can't tell what the concept is because it kept swapping back and forth between the warrior and this old man. And it was alluding to things like that the old man was doing while he was doing that. And the title is Little Devil Inside. Like, is this like, a universe that's inside of this man.
Yeah, I
It,
don't
it looks so cool.
know. And like it, it it's almost like it's going to be a game, but it's like you said, is it taking place inside this dude's body?
That's what it's implying that it is, but if that's what's happening, what the hell is happening? What is this shit?
Like, that's a trip.
Like, is it
Okay.
going to reveal at the end that you were a warrior and that warrior was like a white blood cell or something? Like,
That was what I was thinking. And like, maybe as it goes, you're like, the bigger enemies, you're like trying to fight like cancer
bigger
or
diseases
something.
as this old man is dying. Like, who the fuck
Yes.
knows? It could be that. And I would be all down. Like, based on the art style alone, I'm all for it. It looks great.
Yeah. And then we had a teaser for NBA 2K21 that gave absolutely no sort of gameplay
Nope.
whatsoever.
In the bottom right corner, it was like, this is pre-alpha footage. Zion
So,
Williamson was like, the new generation is here. And then it was just him in
yeah,
a high school gym.
he was dribbling and shooting.
Yep. He was like,
Next. One of the weirdest games. That Bug Snacks game.
man, it's from the studio that made us Octodad.
Yes.
So you need to take that
Octodad.
into consideration. But it also looks like a game that at first I'm going to be like, no, I'm not touching that. I'm not going to touch it. But then there's going to be one night, and I promise you it's going to happen probably while we're on a call together. All of our friends are on a call together. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to get a little bit too drunk. I'm going to get a little bit too stoned. And I'm going to be like, you know what? I'm going to see what this is about.
And then you're going to play it for a week straight.
Yep, I'm going to play it. Yep, I'm going to be like, you know what? Fuck it. It's going to happen. I'm going to see what this shit's about. Because it alluded towards some treachery towards the end with that monster. I don't know. Could be a sleeper.
Literally becoming what you eat.
Yeah, man, that's a game. Like, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll get some mushrooms and play this. Is it a game that I'll play completely sober? Not in my life. But will I get fucked up? Yeah, you know what? Let's do it.
And then we had something that I'm sure really intrigued you, as the fan of Dark Souls that you are. The remake of Demon Soul.
Oh, it doesn't just intrigue me. That's the one title that I haven't been able to sink my fangs into yet. Because by the time that I bought it, the servers were actually turned off. You couldn't play online, so I wasn't able to get the full experience. Therefore, I was like, do I want to play this or not? So I put it on the shelf for a little bit when I found out that the servers were closed, because in the community, people were saying the only reason why they probably would have shut these down was for another remake. So I've been holding my breath, and one thing that I said to some of my coworkers who are also getting ready to watch this with me were, you know, the only thing that I'm really holding out for is Demon Souls. And the level of execution that they brought to that game was not a PlayStation 4 title. That was a PlayStation 3 exclusive.
Yeah.
And it was what built the Dark Souls franchise. They went from Demon Souls to Dark Souls. Didn't make much money off of either. Thought that they were going to go bankrupt. And then Dark Souls got the cult following that it got. It was revered as the hardest game. So then that studio got the funding they needed to make titles such as Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. So that now that they have all of the funding from those titles to put back into their original brainchild, it's going to be one of the hardest games that you'll ever play.
Yeah. It visually looks incredible.
From Software puts their time into that.
Oh, yeah. It's probably why we haven't seen anything on Elden Ring. They're probably just meticulously working to get it perfected.
Exactly. And that was a game that I bought as a kid by accident once. I was like, you know what, this $3, yeah, this looks cool. And I played it, and it was the hardest shit that I'd ever put in my PlayStation 2. And I'm like, no, this game is too much. I'm like, this looks like Oblivion a little bit. Why is it so hard? No, I can't get past the tutorial. Fuck this.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what they do with the help of George R.R. Martin writing it for Elden Ring.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be amazing.
And then we had what might end up being the game like I'm most hyped for, other than sequels. That's Deathloop.
Deathloop.
Oh my god, there's so many different things we can talk about. The art style, the whole
Presentation of the trailer, like
the concept of you're not only do you go back to the beginning of the mission when you die, your character's aware of it.
exactly. And
And
he was one of like the former like owners of this place in the first place, like based on like the initial narration that you heard.
mhm,
Like they were like, oh, my former, like my progenitor or whatever the word is, I forget the
yeah,
exact word they used, is been, you know, deemed guilty. And you have force powers and a shotgun.
yeah. And then you have the two conflicting what do they call them? Assassins?
I think. I think it. Well, I don't think they were conflicting assassins. You're referring to like the main guy and then the woman, right?
Yeah.
The woman is the one like who's the one killing him the most. But her thing is she's like, I don't like to watch him die, but I like to kill him.
Here's a concept I think they might implement, quote unquote co-op, but you're kind of playing two separate single player experiences and only occasionally interacting with the other player.
It wouldn't be the first time someone has done something like that, I would say, based on that one prison-based game. I forget what it's called.
Oh,
Wait,
A Way Out.
A Way Out. Exactly. It
Yeah.
could be something similar, but it might not even be like you barely run across each other. It could be a co-op experience in which you're actively working against each other.
Yeah. Like you're trying to get through these levels to try and one, escape the person, or two, kill the person.
Exactly. It could be a whole different thing like that.
Yeah.
But the way that they presented it, it was like a Tarantino movie in terms of the delivery of the trailer. But I do not expect a single white person to say the N-word in this game. So that's, you know, the one redeeming quality of it looking like a Tarantino movie. No, that's I'm not that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it looks like a Tarantino movie, but it's not going to be like that. It's like
No.
cool Western, like, you know,
Yeah.
you know that it was presented exactly like fucking Pulp Fiction would have been presented with the
Oh, yeah.
snapshots like Bethesda Studios. Boom, boom.
Yeah. And then we have Resident Evil Village.
Oh, Resident
This
Evil
is
Village.
gonna be good.
It might have VR elements tied to it. Who the fuck knows there? It just looks
Like,
so beautiful.
it's not zombies like the old games. It's not just this crazy undead-ish supernatural family like Seven. It's werewolves
Exactly.
in
There are
like this
werewolves
mountain town.
and you got Chris Redfield.
Yeah.
Chris Redfield comes back after having one of the worst outings in Resident Evil history, hopefully to redeem himself on what looks like some Leon Kennedy Resident Evil 4 stuff.
It looks like from the reveal thing, like he could be in kind of a gray area because
It
he
looks like he
shoots that
is.
person and your character's like, Leon, why?
Chris,
Or
why?
Chris,
Yeah,
why?
and it was I think that was his wife. Like, I think that was the dude's wife, and he knows him. He calls him Ethan. I'm not as familiar with the Resident Evil lore as I
Because
should
I
be.
think Ethan was the protagonist in Seven.
Maybe. Oh, that would make sense. Okay. That would make sense. I forget exactly who he is if he has been introduced to us. I'm also someone who loathed Resident Evil up until the fourth title, because the fourth title was the first one they got right, in my opinion.
I
My
really
opinion.
tried to get into the early ones, and maybe it's because I tried to get into them after playing Resident Evil 4, but I'm like, I just can't.
It's the layout. It was the controller layout at the time. That's what damned
Yeah.
it. But moving on, what's the next title that we have to talk about? Because they just get progressively good from here, if my memory is not mistaken.
Pragmata.
Pragmata, that's the one that
That's
you
the
were
one I was
thinking
thinking
of.
of.
That's the
That
one you were
looks
thinking of.
stunning.
I can't tell what's going on there, though, because that little girl didn't need a spacesuit on the moon, but that dude needed a suit even on Earth.
Like, is Earth inhabitable at this point? And like, the girl has some genetic difference that makes her capable of living in these inhabitable conditions.
Maybe. And there was that weird robot cat.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was just her pet, but then the way that they just got ripped up into the sky, and then they were like fighting the satellite off a little bit, but then they kept getting ripped further into the sky. and they wound up on the moon after already seemingly having been on Earth, being like, that's freedom. Like, what? It left so many questions, but
Yeah.
that's the type of marketing that you need. Like, what is this? I need to know more.
Like, I need to know this. What is this? Who is this? Where are they going? Why are they there? I need to experience this. I need these answers.
Exactly. It reminded me sort of the marketing behind Nier Automata, where it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I need to see what this is about. This is just too
Right.
ridiculous.
And then we had the big reveal, one of the most anticipated sequels in the past few years, Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Zero Dawn was an out of nowhere hit. I need to finish it. It was visually stunning. It was the gameplay so smooth. It's challenging, but not too challenging to where it puts you off. And this new title, like, you're exploring new areas. You're like, it looks like you actually have full-fledged species there, not just the mechanical ones. But it
Oh yeah.
looks like there's some sort of disease, like, riddling the water.
Or like the planet itself, like it's that red planet, but then there's like the warring faction that had those like mammoths, almost the mechanical mammoths. This
Yeah.
title looked so pristine.
It looked perfect. If the trailer is any indication, that's going to be a game that's looked back upon for years as like, here's the standard for this type of game. Everyone else has to work to equal this.
Exactly, or at least try to come close.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to get blown out of the market left and right.
Yeah. And just Sony knocked it out of the ballpark with this. They took it to where I was like, I don't know which console I'm going with next gen. Now Xbox has to convince me really hard to even consider going with them before
They
I get
need
a PS5.
Exactly. They need to pick up some exclusives. They need to pick up some franchises that want to work just with them. And it seems like Rockstar is siding with Sony. And if
And
Rockstar is siding with
yeah,
Sony, that's a big blow against you.
yeah,
But there's one more aspect that we haven't talked about yet, and one more reveal that we aren't talking about yet. But that's the fact that these guys are doing something that I've never seen before. We're releasing a console that is coming not only with a version that you can put your discs into, you can have your physical gaming collection left and right, but then you have your digital hardware, digital exclusive. You can only download titles onto that. And I have to imagine that inherently, that console is going to cost a little bit more.
no, actually,
Unless
traditionally, like with the Xbox did that with the Xbox One S, it's cheaper.
it might be, but it's all inherent on how much the disk drive costs per hardware space versus how much base data storage they put on those digital consoles.
Yeah,
Because these days, if you put 500 gigs on a digital console,
nothing.
that's a console that you can play 3 games on, 4 games
Yeah,
at the most. If you have Call of Duty on that right now, 180 of those 500 gigs are taken up. If not, note, after last night's update, 210 gigs are taken up by
yeah,
Call of Duty. That's one of the games everybody wants on their console. You need to have big memory storage.
yeah,
But if they offset the costs of the disk drive with that and they make them the same, I could see them having like a 3 terabyte console easily.
yeah. Along with however big the solid state drive is, because
Yeah,
they said the consoles are going to come with solid state drives, which is going to make everything just run. Loading
exactly.
times will basically be a thing of the past.
And that's one of the bigger selling points on PCs up until now with consoles. Now consoles are
Yeah,
able to adapt, and that's where the PC versus console debate might start to shift. Right.
yeah. And there was more hardware announced. I love the controller. I love the
Built-in
dual.
mic and speaker?
Yeah, you basically don't need a headset to join a party now.
Exactly. It might be
Though
harder to hear.
I don't anticipate the built-in mic on the controller being all that high of quality.
Exactly. It will be good enough, but it won't be
Right.
great.
You'll still want to plug in your headset more
Exactly.
often than not.
But it's for the folks who just can't afford them or don't want to buy them.
Right. But the controller looks so sleek.
Oh yeah.
Um,
My concern though are the D-pad. Like that's my only critique so far
yeah.
looking at it, because I've owned a SCUF controller that has one of the D-pad like discs on it.
Hmm.
And based on the way that those buttons are ingrained into the controller, it looks like they're harder to trigger unless they're just so soft to the touch that it's just like
Yeah.
boop boop.
And
That would be
then you
different.
have the trigger buttons, which it seemed, I forget how they put it, but
They're adaptive almost from what it
yes,
showed.
yes. Like it will adapt to how hard you're pressing it, like the level in which you're pressing it in.
It
And
seemed to be just totally responsive.
yeah. Um,
And that's what I'm excited for. And I'm hoping that the Bluetooth connectivity between the controller and console is even better than the PlayStation 4. Because now that I've had it for a long time, I'm starting to see some issues between all of my controllers and my console wirelessly.
yeah. Yeah. You've been talking about that. I also am really intrigued at how that 3D headset is going to work.
3D audio is great.
And like with the 3D audio, like especially with a title like Resident Evil,
Oh, that's
that's
going to
going
be
to make
crazy.
the experience so much scarier. Like imagine just late night, you turn off the lights in your room, the only light is the light coming from your TV, and not only do you have a headset on, but it's 3D audio. You're going to it's going to be terrifying.
And that's exactly how I played the PT demo and exactly how I played Resident Evil 7 while I was playing it. But I didn't have the 3D audio. Like
Right.
I had all the lights off in the middle of the night. I would not play those games during the day. I'm like, nope, dead of night. Let's go. 3 a.m. wishing hour, headset on. Let's start playing some
Yeah.
Resident Evil for a bit.
And that's how I would play Dead Space, which that's another game I need to finish.
It is. That's what that game reminded me of. Pragmatic, I think it was called.
Yeah.
That also gave me some Dead Space vibes a little bit.
Yeah. But all in all, this was the perfect thing for them to do to reveal this console, to reveal these games, to reveal just everything that's going to be the next gen for Sony. Like from the hardware to the software to the accessories.
It's going
The
to be a console.
the only thing missing is knowing the release date and the price point.
And the release date has to at least be by fall of this year based on the release date of some of these titles that they were showing
Yes.
us. Unless they push
I'm
the whole shebang back.
I'm thinking it might be a November release to capitalize on the Black Fridays and the Cyber Mondays.
Oh, yeah.
Like imagine say beginning of November the PS5 releases, and then your Best Buys, your Walmarts, your Amazon, all this, put it on sale for a bit of a discount just a few weeks later. That's going to move any amount of units you want it to move.
Exactly. And I have a
And
prediction right now. I'm going to lay it out. The video is going to chronicleize this. November 12th is when we're going to see the PlayStation 5 drop. And at that point in time, I know that he can't talk. His roommate just came in. That's what's happening here. But after November 12th, what's going to happen is the price point's going to launch at no less than $500 per
yeah,
unit.
I fully anticipate that.
500 from start, and that's November 12th to Black Friday.
Yeah.
Black Friday is going to see that drop from either 500 to 400 or maybe 600 to 500. It all depends on what Sony wants to do here and what Xbox does with their pricing. And then after the Black Friday sale, what's going to happen is the price isn't going to go fully back up. It's going to go to either $450 or $550. And then progressively, we're going to see those $50 start getting chipped off until it's a $300 console 2 years into release where they have a bulkier base of games. Same thing with Xbox. That's what it's been for the last 2 or 3 generations.
And I think what Xbox or what Sony needs to avoid is putting the price point too high like they did with the PS3. Because wasn't that like 6 to 7 at launch?
It was, But based on the technology then versus now, it didn't warrant that price point.
No, it not
Now
at
it
all.
could.
And
But the
I
biggest thing is,
remember the interview they did. They were like, "Yeah, that's a lot of money for you to expect people to pay for the console." He was like, "Yeah, everyone's going to want to get a second job to buy this console." And
yeah, it was a
everyone's like,
poor marketing strategy.
"No,
They were
no,
like,
we
no.
won't."
And then Microsoft just silently lowered their price a little bit more, and they
Yeah.
were like, we're affordable.
And then there was, I think, the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation 1 were announced at the same uh, E3. And the guy who ran Sony America just came up and said 250 and walked
Yep,
off because I think that was like $100 less than the Saturn.
I think so. Like it was like a very bold strategy that they just like, you know
Yeah.
what? Boom. And then it blew up in their face years later. So one thing that I've been talking about with some people that I know is that for their price point, we don't think they're going to announce it until Xbox and Microsoft announce theirs so they can
Yeah.
undercut them.
I
That's
absolutely think so too.
That's what we think. And that's why they're not giving us the release date. They're giving us like seasons for these games in hopes because they know Microsoft announced their console will be up by X time frame. If it's not, then we'll go ahead and launch ours, but we're going
Right.
to try to undercut them so we get more sales.
Oh, absolutely. This has really convinced me to at or close to launch. Maybe I'd probably give it a month or two just to see what technical problems there might be, but definitely Sony's won the first round of this console war for this gen.
We just have to see what comes from here.
Yeah. I fully expect now a rebuttal little stream from Microsoft within the next few weeks.
In some way, shape, or form, but it's all about what they have to bring to the table.
Yeah. And I'm also interested to see what Nintendo does because I don't think we're going to get a new console. I think we could get a slew of new games, though.
Rumors say that we have Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine remakes already on the back burner. That's what rumors say. The dirt sheets, they can sometimes lie, but I don't know. It
I
seems like
would
a good move to
be,
make.
I would be so for that.
Buy them both. I would entirely.
Oh yeah,
I would like to see them move Wind Waker and potentially another thing that people are talking about and whispers and rumors, not truth, folks. Whispers and rumors. Twilight Princess. If that gets moved on over to the Switch, it's a fucking wrap. You
yeah.
can play, but my argument is if you can run Dark Souls on the Switch, you can run any of those games and then some.
Oh yeah. Um, I almost expect them to also maybe try and get Skyward Sword to be in better standing with people and put that over onto the Switch.
Oh yeah, it's
And
possible.
because I think we've gotten I think all the 3D ones remade up to Skyward Sword. Or at least if not remade, remastered. Because I know they remastered they did
Link's
Ocarina of
Awakening was
Time.
one. Ocarina of Time and
They've
Majora's
done
Mask.
Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. And then on the Wii and Wii U, they did Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Well, the Wii wasn't a re-release for Twilight Princess unless it came out on the Wii
No,
U.
Wii U. Wii U was Twilight Princess.
Exactly. And I just want to see those ported over to the console that they finalized it with.
But I think Skyward Sword would be a logical next one because in so many ways, like a lot of people consider that game unappreciated because a lot of people love that game. But a lot of people didn't give it the time of day due to how badly that reveal went at E3.
Exactly. It wasn't just that either, though. It was a matter of it being probably the most linear title in the platform at that stage in the progression of the title itself. So instead of having an open world that you could explore, it kind of forced you down tunnels almost.
Yeah.
And it made the entire process what people didn't want. It took away everything from Twilight Princess and just kind of forced you down hallways. And that's what rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too. That and the control system, the fact that it was
The
initially
motion controls.
motion control did it for a lot of people.
Um, but this basically has turned the gaming world into a loop. Everyone's talking about these games. Everyone's talking about where do we go from here? How's Microsoft going to respond? How's Nintendo going to respond? Hopefully we see that. Hopefully it gives us more content to talk about.
Exactly.
But for now, that was our review of Sony's reveal event. It was an out and out success. There were a couple little bumps, but those we at least are still wondering with those.
Exactly. And the more questions we have, the more we have to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So until next time, thank you for joining me. I will talk to you all later.
Adios, our friends.